if we're thinking about discipleship over these few services, following Jesus, we've perhaps diverted a bit about love. That wasn't really very much of a diversion. Noah last week. If we're thinking about discipleship, this is a really good story. A woman meets Jesus going about her everyday life, and she's so blown away that she runs and tells everyone she knows to come and meet Jesus too. And they come and then say, we believe now, not because of what you told us, but because we ourselves have heard Jesus, and we know that he really is the Saviour of the world. Job done for her. You know, we don't even know her name, which seems quite extraordinary. In tradition, she's known as Saint Fotini, which means the enlightened one or the bringer of light. And do you know that she has Dundee links? Dundee seems to be connected with everywhere. Just a few days ago, it was Mars, as parts of the Perseverance rover landed on Mars last Thursday. They were built at the Technology Park just up the road from us here in Dundee. And I gather that Dundee is twinned with Nablus in Palestine, which is where the well is, where Jesus and this woman Fotini had their encounter. It was hot when I was there 18 months ago, and it was clearly hot when Jesus stopped there for a rest. He and his friends are on their way back to Galilee after visiting Jerusalem. The direct route would take them right through Nablus, but it's still the case that most people will take a detour to avoid going through Palestine. Then, though, more to avoid going through Samaria, but not Jesus. This conversation with the woman at the well is the longest conversation that Jesus is recorded as having with anyone, by far. His friends had gone into town for food, so if there were only the two of them there, Jesus and this woman, who was it who recorded the conversation? Presumably she did. After all, we know that she told everyone she knew, the whole town, about it, and presumably she kept on telling in full detail. I said this, and then he said, and he goes, and I wanted to say, and finally somebody wrote it down. I want to say, well done, Samaritan woman, whether Fotini is your name or not, and thank you. Because there's so much for us to learn in this story, whoever we are. She's gone to the well in the heat of the day alone. Of course it's possible. She'd just had a harassed morning and was way behind. But as we hear more of the story, it's more likely that she wasn't welcome when everyone else went, or she didn't want to face them because of the way that they treated her. And when she reaches the well, there's someone else there by himself as well, a man, which might have filled her with dread as she approached the well, or with pleasure. Maybe a strange man might be someone to talk to, even if it wasn't what was generally done. Certainly, she responds when he speaks to her, even if it's mostly to argue. She could have, probably should have just ignored him, but she doesn't. He's thirsty, it's hot, and he asks her for a drink. However natural that might seem to us, it was socially utterly unacceptable. A, you should never speak to an unaccompanied woman in their society. B, he should have guessed by the fact that the woman was alone that she was a social outcast. C, they were in foreign territory, and this woman was a foreigner, and not a proper Jew. As a practicing Jew himself, Jesus should not share cups and bowls with non-Jews, so he could not ask her for a drink. But of course, Jesus doesn't care much for rules of that sort. He's much more interested in people. Nor does he seem very bothered about moral standards. He doesn't tell her that she should get her life sorted out, or that she needs to leave the man she's with or get married to him. He's not bothered by her circumstances. He's interested in her. And very quickly, he moves the conversation on from talking about practical things like water and buckets onto spiritual things like the water of life. And the woman's thirst is as much for the spiritual as for the practical, as with many people. Jesus offers her life-giving water, and she embraces it. She didn't come to the well looking for God, probably not looking for anything, but having been open to the unexpected and giving water to a man who was thirsty, she's found God just the same, and she's transformed.
Jesus Christ is waiting in the street. No one is his neighbor, all alone he needs. Listen, Lord Jesus, I am lonely too. Make me friend or stranger, fit to wait on you. Jesus Christ is raging in the streets, where injustice spirals and real hope retreats. Listen, Lord Jesus, I am angry too. In the kingdom's causes, let me rage with you. Jesus Christ is healing in the street, curing those who suffer, touching those he grieves. Listen, Lord Jesus, I have pity too. Let my care be active, healing just like you. Jesus Christ is dancing in the street, where each sign of hatred is love defeats. Listen, Lord Jesus, I should triumph too, where good conquers evil. Let me dance with you. Jesus Christ is calling in the streets. Who will join my journey? I will guide their feet. Listen, Lord Jesus, let my fears be few. Walk one step before me, I will follow you.
And then the disciples come back, and they're scandalised. Although by now they know better than to remonstrate with Jesus. But honestly, Jesus, a woman by herself in the middle of the day, don't you know what that must mean? And she's a Samaritan. But Jesus has lessons for his closest followers too. This woman has become an evangelist, even in time known as a saint. Loads of people in her village come to believe in Jesus, at first because she told them, then because they meet him for themselves. And that's what's to happen now. So the disciples have to learn that there are many different workers in God's harvest, not just ones like them. Jesus is preparing them to go and stay in a Samaritan village for some nights. And it's not about getting the villagers to come into their community and become like them, come to church at 11 o'clock in our service, but to go and find that God is active in Samaritan villages too. That was something different. It starts with a drink of water in the middle of the day, ends with hospitality in Samaritan houses. It starts with an unlikely witness, shunned by the others, who then listened because she so clearly had something to say and was transformed. Jesus is unexpected. We don't always find him where we expect to. And often, actually, we find them where we least expect it. Sometimes we're so caught up in our own view of how Jesus must be, a good man, a moral leader, a religious person, that we fail to recognise him when we see him. And sometimes we walk right past because we're not prepared to speak to this strange man who accosts us in the wrong place at the wrong time. And he might appear to lead us into strange or even hostile territory. I wonder whether it was this encounter with a Samaritan who gave him a drink of water when he was in need that led on to so much more. Could it be that that was the inspiration for Jesus' famous story about another Samaritan, the one who stopped to help the injured Jewish man when no one else did? You go then and do the same, is what Jesus said, no doubt including the go and tell, which both this woman and he did so wonderfully. Have a listen also to that other story, which also features a Samaritan who offers water.
There was once a man who was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when robbers attacked him, stripped him and beat him up, leaving him half dead. It so happened that a priest was going down that road, but when he saw the man, he walked on by on the other side. In the same way, a Levite also came there, went over and looked at the man, then walked on by on the other side. But a Samaritan who was travelling that way came upon the man, and when he saw him, his heart was filled with pity. He went over to him, poured oil and wine on his wounds, and bandaged them. Then he put the man on his own animal and took him to an inn where he took care of him. The next day he took out 2 silver coins and gave them to the innkeeper. "Take care of him," he told the innkeeper, "and when I come back this way, I will pay you whatever else you spend on him." And Jesus concluded, "In your opinion, which one of these 3 acted like a neighbour toward the man attacked by the robbers?" The teacher of the law answered, "The one who was kind to him." Jesus replied, "You go then and do the same."
Travel, I'll be there.